This video is a free taster clip from my brand new ukulele course, Jazz Beginners. More details later in the video.
The first thing I'm going to consider is a staccato way of playing, and this is more in line with the music of Django Reinhardt, who was a French jazz player, and his chords are very staccato. Often we'll play quite a staccato strumming pattern, and staccato is a term to mean short notes, quite short and punchy, succinct notes. If we want to play notes like this, we're doing it for much more of a rhythmic purpose than necessarily to enjoy the harmony in the chords we're playing. That is staccato. You can hear I was cutting the notes off short, as opposed to letting them ring on. And why are we doing that? Well, like I said, we want this driving rhythmic feel. If you think about the ensemble that Django was playing in, he didn't always necessarily have a drummer. He was mostly with guitars. And so this sort of more emphasis on the rhythm side of strumming rather than the chords mean that you get this very punchy dance-like beat. And even if there is a drummer in the band, this staccato style means that you're locking in with that drummer and playing that very short attack, simulating that short attack of a drum. If you think about where you hit a drum, you hit a sound, boom! But it's a very short sound and it decays very quickly. Unlike strings, if you don't play them staccato, well, they like to ring on for longer. So we're going to kill and cut these notes, mute the strings, kill the strings, choke the strings, there's lots of different terms for it, in order to sound more like a drummer, in order to provide that danceable beat. And something else I'll just quickly mention is, and this applies to all the styles we're going to look at, there are always different times when different things will be different appropriate, and other people may have different opinions on when these things are appropriate. So first let's look at the technique on how we play something staccato-like. So for this, we're going to need to play chords that use all of the strings, or at the very least most of them. This is because we're going to use a technique where we are playing our chord just as we normally would to ring out the notes. This is an A minor 7, by the way, not our open chord. There we've got no fingers, we've got no control. So instead we need to find another A minor 7 where we've got fingers on the strings, and this is one of them. We're barring the 2nd fret, and then you can either do a half bar using the next finger along and bar the E and A strings only, and then use another finger, the ring finger, to play the 4th fret of the C string, or you could do it with a lot of individual fingers. It will be like that. So you've got 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, then your little finger on the 4th of the C, and then 2 fingers, the middle 2 fingers on the 3rd fret of the E and A. I'm going to play it like this though. And what we're doing is, instead of just letting the chord ring on, we're killing the sound. This hand's not doing anything, look. It's over here. But I'm able to turn off the sound somehow using this hand. So what are we doing? Well, we're releasing the pressure just a little bit, just enough to kill the sound, but we're not taking our hands off. They're not lifting off. Because what happens is you lose the control, you lose your placement of the chord, but also you create a lot of extra noise, those sort of ghost notes. And we don't want that. So we just need a very nice, clean cut-off. So practice this on the A minor. Finger it just enough to get a sound out first of all, get comfortable with that new chord, and then just release the pressure, but keep your fingers. My fingers are still touching the strings, but they're just, all the squeeze in the muscles goes. So you should just practice that first of all, whenever you're trying to do a chord like this and play it in a staccato style. Sometimes you may find that certain strings die before others. Make sure that that's not occurring. Make sure that it's all happening in sync together. All the control has to happen in unison. And then, once you've done that, practice putting them back on to be able to strum the chord continuously. And then a bit faster. And eventually you want to be able to do this at the tempo of some of these tunes. So Typically, therefore, we need to be playing chords where you're playing all 4 strings. But actually, while we're on that topic, how do we approach chords where we still have some open strings? Even if we try and cover all the strings, there are going to be times when we do have open strings. And so we need a way to deal with that. And while we're on the C7, you can have your fingers, your other fingers prepared to just land on the string and cut them off like that. I'm not hammering them down so you get a chunk. Just enough to kill the sound and no more. Again, no extra noises, we don't want any of that. Just enough to kill the sound. And practice that at a slow tempo. And then a faster one. When you're going faster, the one thing you want to avoid is moving your hands too far away from the strings. When you're trying to do that very quickly, it becomes very labour intensive and very exhausting. So tiny little movements is what we're looking for here. Have you ever thought about playing jazz on the ukulele? Believe it or not, the ukulele is really well suited to playing jazz, and there's a whole host of stuff that you'll be able to do with your ukulele that you will never have done before and you'll never do elsewhere. So why not come and study some jazz ukulele on my brand new online course? The Jazz Beginners course takes you right from the basics, where you only need to know a handful of chords and strumming techniques. And by the end of the course, you'll be able to play dozens of jazz standards really well. We've got hours of videos split across 7 modules and over 40 lessons, most of which come with a downloadable PDF and activity pack. You'll learn how to play with others, as well as gain more independency as a musician. I've been playing jazz ukulele all of my life, and I'm constantly exploring and finding new things, and through these courses I'm going to be sharing some of that information with you. So why not head over to matthewquilliam.co.uk and begin your ukulele journey today.
Because you are all I long for, all I worship and adore.
So the song that we're going to study in this module is Fly Me to the Moon, and the chords we'd normally play are A minor, D minor, G7 and C. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. But we're going to do them with these voicings so that we've got more control. So we already looked at the A minor 7. Fly me to the... Then let's look at D minor. Now we're covering 3 of the strings already, so you could use this spare finger to dampen them. Or if we use this spare finger to our advantage and put it on the 3rd fret of the A string, where a C chord would normally be, we get a D minor 7 chord. And then we can do that staccato effect. Then G7, we can use maybe our thumb, and there the thumb is muting the G string, but we're still doing that release and put on again of pressure in these fingers. Or we can play another G7. We take our first finger and put it on the 3rd fret of the E, 2nd finger goes on the 4th fret of the G, then the ring finger, the 5th fret of the C, and the little finger, the 5th fret of the A. And then, instead of a C chord, we can go back to this shape. As we know, this is an A minor 7, and so is this. Now, did you know that an A minor 7 chord can also be called a C6 chord? When we get to these chords that have more and more notes, there's going to be a lot of overlap, which means that a lot of these chords can have the same name, multiple chords having the same name, or the same chord having multiple names. So this open chord, therefore, A minor 7, is also a C6. So therefore, this A minor 7 can also be a C6. And so we can play that in place of our C chord. So we've gone from fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars to fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Sounding a lot more jazzy already. We're playing these 7th chords now, or the 6th chord in the case of the C6, and so they sound a lot more jazzy because we're introducing new notes. And we're playing them staccato, which sounds very jazz-like indeed. Make sure that you can play all those chords, make sure the shape comes out first, and then practice playing them staccato, and then practice the whole progression of those 4 chords at a greater speed. So why not head over to matthewquilliam.co.uk and begin your ukulele journey today.
Because you are all I long for, all I worship and adore.